if you walked through the major roles you've had, what is a lesson you've taken away from, going back to, you want to go before Bungie or starting with Bungie and then Microsoft? Like, what is a major lesson that you kind of pull from each of those things that you can still carry with you today that helps you be a good leader of a game design team or game studio?
Oh, that's a great question. I mean, I think one of the greatest skills anybody can have is the ability to learn. Like the VCs like to tell you to fail fast, right? And really what they want you to do is they want you to start learning really quickly. I think they would prefer that you succeed fast, but fail fast is just that's the second best thing to like failing slowly, which is the worst thing, right? So, but like if I think back to like what I have learned through my failures or successes or whatever through each of those roles, I mean, there's probably a couple of really important threads. If you go back to Bungie, I think my early career, I think I really, and this is probably a positive and a negative. There is a return for effort, and it's probably a logarithmic return, meaning if you're never going to get anywhere by phoning anything in, and if you really want to be successful at anything, you have to sweat details. You have to lean in and care. You have to finish things. And you have to take responsibility. That has stuck with me forever. And I think one of the things that I like to hire for, I like to manage to, is what I call responsibility, which is like it's a big mushy word, but what it really means is, I can give you a responsibility. You can take a responsibility, and you will deliver against it. In fact, you will deliver above it, and that's part of like being a good communicator, being a good listener. I understand what this responsibility is. It's problem solving. It's like, okay, I don't know how to deliver on this right now, but I am going to go ask the right questions so I can figure out how to deliver on it. And then it's the effort, which is I'm not going to bed until this is done. And that sounds crappy. I don't tell my people to stay up all night, but the intention is that responsibility is really important because that's what makes things work. And especially in today where my team's distributed, everybody has to be buttoned up on responsibility. Otherwise things will fall through the cracks, and you don't see it as quickly because you're not walking around a studio and asking people questions about what they're working on just as part of general conversation. So that I think has always stuck with me from the early days. I would say, I found a really interesting. So, like I was at Microsoft during the original Xbox ship days. And then when I was at Disney, it was right after they had bought Marvel. So it was a really exciting time at Disney. And so I got to watch how projects were getting managed, how they were being greenlit, and how they were being shipped at two very different companies. One, Microsoft being a software company that was just started getting into games and creative, and the other, a very mature creative company, Disney. And what I discovered, which was fairly different about the two, was that Microsoft very much had this approach of we're not sure exactly what we're doing, and I don't mean that in a bad way. Like, we need to learn. We're going to try a lot of stuff. We're not really going to talk about the budgets so much. We'll try and just talk about the product. And at Disney, which was a much more mature company, was, at least in the games business when I got there, was managed. It was very buttoned up in the way it was managed. Product life cycles and budgets and schedules were fairly tightly controlled. I think both units had their challenges in terms of meeting their expectations, but I just found it very interesting how two organizations that appeared boring and technical on the one side was very much a product company, and another company that seemed very sexy and creative on the outside was very much operationally driven. My takeaway from that, I think was probably I'm a little bit more of a product person, but I don't know. Mileage may vary. I just thought that was a really interesting kind of takeaway from both of those experiences. I'm a little raw. I'm not raw, but like my EA experience. I'll tell you actually the big takeaway that I got out of, I would say, both Industrial Toys and Electronic Arts is try things as fast as you can, I guess. Mm-hmm. I turned that phrase, at Look North World, we talk about attempting success as quickly as possible, not fail fast. Mm-hmm. But it's the same idea, and it's another part of why we like this platform is the idea of going into a cave for a couple of years and coming out with a golden idol is that's no way to operate in a creative environment. Try things, get feedback, iterate. The quicker you can get to something that you can start molding and shaping, the better your end result's going to be. And I think that's true.
I love that. I love all of that. Okay, I'm going to ask you one more, hopefully short question, and then we'll get towards wrapping up. This one is also not on the script, but I wanted, this podcast is to help leaders in game development who are frustrated with solving wrong problems be able to target and solve the right problems. You've talked about a lot of things. Any other advice you have for that leader in game dev who maybe has just started out or is middling through their career, or midway through their career, I should say? What would you tell them to help them succeed in their journey?
Well, let's see. A couple of things. I will say I've always, whenever I've looked at the current moment and asked myself, I've had many transitions in my career where I've asked myself, am I going to do this again? Am I going to make, start another game project, start another game studio? It's my next thing, another game or game related thing. And I always come back to yes, obviously. But it's a lot because when I look at the opportunities that our industry has and what that palette looks like for me to paint in, it's always really exciting. And I would say it's absolutely true now. It's almost always a great time to start a thing when the market is down, because the market is, if it's down, it's probably going to go up, and where we are in games, I think there's a lot of bright future ahead. Who knows what's going to happen with AI? I'm optimistic. I think it's all upside for us who are making games. So that's just context, I would say there. The other thing I would say, something that I wish somebody had probably pulled me aside when I was younger and told me is that there's no magic. It's like if you're working on a game and you are almost always confronted with a constant stream of things to solve for. And you're always trying to figure out how do I get from where my project is today to my vision or my ideal or the awesome thing at the end. There's no magic. It's just what you put into it, So if you're at a place in development where you're not happy with how something is working, how something looks, or the performance of somebody on the project or anything like that, it's not going to get better. You are going to make it better, and it will get better, but there's no magic that will make it get better. And so the idea that you could not worry about it because we'll just give it some time. When you go through those transition points, when you go through a project's life cycle from I have an idea on paper, I have a prototype, I've got a playable, and we're doing production. Those in particular are places where you really need to take stock of what you're doing and be happy be happy with it before you take it to the next step. Because it's not going to, none of the things that you look at and go, shit, I wish this were better. None of those things get better when you go into the next phase, because you've got a whole new set of challenges to solve for in the next phase. That's maybe just a little in the weeds and mechanical of the process of making games. It's very obvious and painful when you're working on a project that's large with a lot of people on it. So
love it. Okay.